Hey everyone, thought I'd record a quick video to just show off my Premier Cup team and strategy. This is a team that's gotten me up to the 3100s. I'm sort of hovering around the low 3100s right now. And I've recorded a set of 10 battles to just show off how this team works in action. The team is relatively standard. I lead with Metagross with pretty standard Metagross moveset, Bullet Punch, Meteor Mash, Earthquake. I do have Metagross set as my active best buddy, and that actually matters quite a bit in the mirror, as you'll see here in these battles in a minute. In the back, I keep Dragonite. So Dragonite, I run Hurricane instead of Draco Meteor. My team is pretty weak to Togekiss in the back if I can't get it lined up against Metagross, so Hurricane occasionally can get me out of a jam and nuke a Togekiss in the back. And then finally, probably my more interesting pick is a Shadow Snorlax. I was lucky enough to find a 15-13-10 Shadow Snorlax pretty early when the Shadows were out, and so I had to max it just because. And I'm rocking Lick Superpower Body Slam on this. So Snorlax is my safe switch, and Superpower, especially from a Shadow Snorlax, can occasionally catch people off, catch them by surprise and win me switch advantage when maybe I wouldn't expect to be able to. So let's just get into the battle so you can get a sense of what this team looks like in action. All right, so first battle against Aravel 1, Metagross into Garchomp. All right, so not the greatest lead, but I don't mind this too much. Typically how I play this is I switch into Snorlax and I don't shield anything here. Most times Garchomps throw one thing and then dip. So in this case, this is an Outrage. This is all right, takes a lot of health. They switch into their Togekiss, which is actually exactly what I want out of this team. The nice thing about leading Metagross is that when I do switch, it typically draws out their Togekiss, which usually leaves my Dragonite in the back with shields to just sort of go to town. So I'm going to finish farming this down with Metagross. Togekiss shouldn't be able to get a charge move here, and this will let my switch timer come up so that I can instantly switch into Dragonite and hopefully sort of sweep their entire team. So they're going to stay in, and they're waiting a while to throw, so I'm just going to throw a Dragon Claw here. Likely take a shield because they won't want to lose that energy. They're leaving with their energy, which is interesting. So I have 2 shields for this Metagross, which should be fine. Dragonite with 2 shields can beat a Metagross with 1 usually, so they're charging up quite a bit here. I do have to be a little bit concerned because that Garchomp does have a lot of energy, so I do not want to use my second shield because I'll get outraged here in the back. So because that Garchomp has energy, I'm going to look to get out of here. And luckily my switch timer got up just in time for me to duck out and get a Meteor Mash. So that was a little bit more luck than skill there, but I will take it. And this works out well because I'm able to farm the Metagross down. I'm going to force them to use their last shield here to keep their Garchomp alive. And then they're going to have to throw here. Otherwise I'm going to be able to get to this Meteor Mash, which they do. And there's no point in me shielding this because my Dragonite's just going to be able to Dragon Breath them down. Good game. All right, next match against just HMB. Metagross into Dragonite. So this is incredibly common. Dragonite's maybe the most common lead that I run into. And I've played this differently over time. But typically what I do is I try to get both of Dragonite's shields if they stay in. So this Dragonite stayed in for this. I will shield the first one regardless of whether it's a Dragon Claw or Hurricane Draco Meteor. This time it's clear it's a Dragon Claw, so I'll let this through just because I like to keep my Metagross alive enough just in case there's a Togekiss in the back. So they bring in a Snorlax, and I'm a little slow here, so I fire the Meteor Mash. Figure I will get this thing down a little bit low. And looks like I'm going to switch into Dragonite. And this is always tricky because these Snorlaxes can have a little bit of everything. But in this case, I don't want to use my second shield. I have a pretty good advantage here. And this one, I was a little bit nervous of this being an Outrage as well, but I decided to let this go because I could farm up with my Snorlax if it was an Outrage. And it wasn't, so I'll farm up with Dragonite. And what was it that came in? Rhyperior, so just, oh, and it's a Rock Throw as well. So I'm just going to soften this thing up with my Dragonite, throw my energy into this and get this thing pretty low. In this case, I could come in with either. My Metagross was kind of low, though. So, yeah, it looks like I'm going to come in with Snorlax. And I don't even really need the superpower at this point. It looks like I was trying to sack there. And I thought that might be a superpower. Rock Rocker would have hurt a lot, too, so that was a good shield. And at this point, Snorlax should be good to sweep, because that Dragonite threw a Dragon Claw before it's switched out. Snorlax is going to win the race to this Body Slam, and then it's going to win the race against Rhyperior as well. So it should be able to get to this Body Slam, or maybe, yeah, okay, they quit before we even get to it. So good game. Next up against Aerial Ace 99. So we'll do Metagross into Rhyperior. So for this matchup, you got to look at what is being what fast move they have. So this is Mud Shot, so I have to get out of there. But you see that I again bait out the Togekiss, because people try to keep their Togekiss away from my Metagross. And that Rhyperior being Mud Shot also helps here, because my Dragonite has a pretty good matchup against it as well. So typically I won't shield in this situation. We'll see how I choose to play this out. I do shield, which is interesting. I guess this will let me... I probably did this because this will allow me to get to a superpower. And let's see. Yeah, so I'll superpower this. And if they don't shield, this will do an absolute ton. Shadow Snorlax hits pretty hard. So I do, and then I'm just going to let it Mud Shot me down. Come in with Dragonite. Still want to take the fast moves from this thing. Shield, I got the Rock Record, which is good. So I'm down 2 shields here, which will be interesting, but my Metagross is basically at full health. So at this point, I just want to stay in and just, I might even end up more or less fast moving them down. So Metagross, even if they throw a Hurricane or a Draco Meteor here, they're just not going to be able to do enough damage. So this is, guessing this is probably going to be like a Hurricane. Yeah, so this does a chunk to Metagross, but I'm able to survive this and get to this Meteor Mash to finish this Dragonite off. Good game. Oh, and I totally forgot the Rhyperior was still there. Oh, it looks like they quit. That was sort of weird. All right, Metagross into Shadow Snorlax. This is probably the one and only time I met a Shadow Snorlax lead. So normally against Snorlax, in a Snorlax lead, I fire a Meteor Mash and then switch into my own Snorlax. So either take a shield or do a ton of damage. Against Shadow Snorlax, this did not work out as well, because my Metagross got taken down quite a bit, and then I get superpowered. I get my own strategy used against me here, and now I'm not totally sure what to do. I end up shielding the second superpower, and they get out. But I've got a bit of a problem, because that Snorlax basically is more or less at full health, and I'm going to get totally farmed down here by this Gyarados. They did fire the charge move, which is kind of good. So probably going to come in with I might even come in with Metagross here. Yeah, just to leave my Dragonite matched up against the Snorlax. But this is not great, because Dragonite doesn't do that great against Shadow Snorlax. So I switch it in, and they have a Magnezone. So this matchup is always tricky. I usually fire one Dragon Claw right away and then try to save the rest of my energy for after they Wild Charge. So I decided to shield this up right away. Just guessing, that's just a straight up guess that it was a Wild Charge, and it was. So now I'm going to try to Dragon Claw this down. I still have a bit of a problem here, because this Snorlax in the back just has a ton of health, and my Dragonite's going to get stomped here, and I don't even know if it's going to get to this Dragon Claw. It will, but see, the thing is, Shadow Snorlax has more health than I think a lot of people think it does. It only has 20% less health or less defense than regular Snorlax. So I get beat by essentially my own wild card pick here in this match. Yeah, it's going to look down my Dragonite as well. So good game. All right, going up against Sled 9495. Another great lead, Metagross into Togekiss. So when other people switch in Snorlax, typically I fire a Meteor Mash into it. So they'll either get a shield or put their Snorlax, take a good chunk out of the Snorlax. And they shield, which is fine. So now I bring in my own Snorlax. And this is where Superpower can be kind of nice, because I can kind of surprise some people. So this person is making my life a little bit easier because they're pretty clearly throwing body slams here. They're not building up to anything. And usually what I do is throw a body slam first just to avoid the defense drop. Not always. Sometimes I just straight fire the Superpower. It's all of these Snorlax matchups especially are a little bit of a guessing game. So I throw this and I'm getting low, but I try to go for a Hail Mary, figuring they probably won't see this coming and probably won't realize how much damage it'll do. And I'm able to take it out and win switch advantage. But also not the greatest, because Garchomp there was able to farm me up a little bit. But again, I've got 2 shields now. I've got my Dragonite lined up against this. This is quite likely a Sand Tomb, but I'm not going to take any risks. And I get lucky and they actually fire the Outrage. And this is GG's at this point. I've got Metagross on Togekiss and Dragonite on Garchomp. So take this out. I mean, my only danger is if this Garchomp is able to farm a lot, but Garchomp really isn't against Metagross, just because most people, I don't think I've ran into a single Garchomp with Earthquake. And to Sand Tomb, they have to, this thing is probably, it looks like they are going to try to take me all the way out, which could be dangerous, but it's really hard unless you Sand Tomb a Metagross once to farm it down. So I'm able to take this thing out. Good game. I think this is set 2, so I get a match against Toshi, which is kind of fun. And Togekiss lead, which, again, another great lead. Dragonites switch in, so I'm going to do probably the same thing here and try to soften this thing up before I bring in my Snorlax. I fire a Dragon Claw right away, which is fine. I'm almost certainly going to get a shield here, which is good. And then probably switch into Snorlax. Yeah. So up a shield especially. This Snorlax, this has got to be a Dragon Claw. Sometimes Dragonites can get tricky and go for something like a Draco Meteor. I've lost a few matches that way because I usually don't shield and just risk it. But straight Dragon Claw, Snorlax is fine, and it's going to be able to farm this Dragonite down. I think I survived this. I think I'm debating it. Yeah, barely. That was fairly risky because if I would have let... I really needed switch advantage there, so I actually probably should have shielded that, but got lucky, which puts me in a really good situation. So Rhyperior, I'm actually surprised. I probably should have switched into Dragonite right away, but I can get their last shield here. Yeah, that was a little bit risky of me because I probably could have used more health on that Metagross because I didn't want to get charmed down by Togekiss. But okay, I've got enough health in this that I should be able to get a Hurricane off on this Togekiss. This is why I carry Hurricane on my Dragonite, so that I can essentially nuke Togekisses in situations exactly like this. So this will almost take out the Togekiss, and then I'll save my shield to cover my Metagross, and I'll be able to fast move this Togekiss down. Ace Trainer Alec. See, I think one of these, okay, Rhyperior leads. This is another one where I've got to look what fast move is being used. So this is another Mudslap one, so I'll switch into Snorlax again. And I think this is the match where I made a mistake. I should have known this was a Superpower coming, especially from a Rhyperior in the lead, and I don't. And the thing is, I usually end up mostly sacrificing my Snorlax in a swap. But in this case, I'm not able to get off much damage, and I let that Dragonite build up quite a bit of energy. So this is not the greatest. And I'm still going to save my shields for this Dragonite in the back. And in fact, I might try to farm move down this Dragonite to try to leave this battle with a whole lot of energy. We'll see how I choose to play this out. So another Dragon Claw, because really... I switch into to Dragonite which is dangerous for this exact reason. As I said, my team is pretty weak to Togekiss in the back. The switch wasn't the greatest, but I was going to lose this anyways because they would have brought their Rhyperior to match up, and then there was no way I was going to win this anyways. But I do have 2 Meteor Mashes essentially stored up, but it won't matter because they'll be able to double shield this and just fast move me down. That is the sort of the one pretty big downside. Every team's got to have a weakness, and Togekiss in the back is this team's. So Metagross into Garchomp again. So I'll do the same thing. I'll switch into my Snorlax, and I'll again eat a charge move from this Garchomp, whatever it is. People are about 50-50 on what they throw here. So this is an Outrage, which gets me low. This person actually is playing it kind of smart and staying in this. I usually like when Garchomps switch out. So they took 1 hit, and I fire a superpower here. I should have waited and should have counted to the very end, so my licks would have done a little bit more damage before I got taken out. But now I'm in a tricky situation. So I've got to keep the Dragonite for the Garchomp in the back. So I'll go in with Metagross. These are, again, the Metagross versus Metagross mirrors are kind of painful because it's basically just guessing games. And I guessed right there because I can't allow myself. I got to get this Metagross down further because I need my Dragonite. My Dragonite can't take out all 3 of their Pokemon. So they let that go, which is all right. And this is a tough call as well. Again, I feel like I needed my Metagross here just because Dragonite has some work to do. So they switch out of their Garchomp into their Magnezone, and I'm going to play this the same way. So 1 Wild Charge is not going to take me out. So I'll fire 1, and I thought this was kind of fast because I thought they would build up to 2, and they mirror shotted me, which is interesting, maybe going for the attack drop. And this is for sure going to be a Wild Charge, but I survived by a little bit, and I'm able to Dragon Claw this. I need to get this thing as low as possible. So they shield. And my Metagross here, so I really should have built up probably a little bit more. They weren't quite at a Wild Charge yet, because this does take it out with a defense drop. But now it's basically a race to the charge move, because this Sand Tomb isn't going to KO the Metagross. So now the race is on. And you'll see that I lose CMP. Garchomp's got a monstrous attack, so I lose this. So 1 more bullet punch, and I think I would have won this. All right, on to the next one. So the Metagross Mirror. That's the first one we've ran into, but I run into this a lot. So there's a very specific way I like to play this. Because I know, in this case, I'm not dealing with a best buddy on the other end. I actually play this out similarly regardless of whether the other person is best buddy. But if they aren't best buddy, it makes my life easier because I know I'm going to win CMP. So almost everybody baits every single move in this mirror. It's almost never do people throw Earthquakes. I think I've seen 1 person ever throw an Earthquake in this opening mirror. So I do the same. I just fire Meteor Mash, but I always let the second one go because I like to save at least 1 shield for my Dragonite in the back. And what's great about having CMP is I know I can get off this Meteor Mash, which will put them really low into perfect Snorlax farming range. So winning CMP is great here because I'll take them down into farming range. I lose. They were smart there to undercharge this, so my Snorlax is going to have less to farm up. That was a really smart play from them. But they switch in the Togekiss, which is amazing. It basically immediately takes care of any of my worries in the back. Because now there's almost nothing that they could have that would beat Dragonite unless they're carrying something super weird like Ice Fang Hippowdon or a Gardevoir or something like that. So I'm able to take this out. And they have their own Dragonite. They have a Shadow Dragonite, which is pretty amazing. But this is why I keep the shield, because Dragonite, I find I usually need a shield advantage to win in the back. So usually I let the shields go in the early matchups to save it for Dragonite in the back. All right. Next match against Rhyperior. So this is, again, Mud Shot. So I switch into Snorlax again. I think this match I'm going to be smarter, realizing this is probably a superpower. Just because they get to it kind of quickly and I shield it. So now they're going to want to switch out. And again, you'll see how often this happens. This is kind of why this team has worked so well for me, is so many people switch into the Togekiss in this situation and just leaving the Dragonite to go crazy in the back. So it'll be interesting. I think the last time I played this out, I shielded this. Let's see if I shield it here. I don't. So this is how I usually play this now. I just let this go because I don't really need switch, and they get a boost, which is kind of funny. Actually, probably bad for them because my Metagross might be able to get off 2 bullet punches. Yeah, so the boost was actually not good for them there. So I switch out to my Dragonite, figuring it should be good to go. But this is going to be tricky because even though I have an energy advantage, they have a shield advantage here. So I get 1. And I'm going to let this go. And I think I'm just going to farm down with my Metagross, because even though my Metagross loses the matchup against Rhyperior, Rhyperior cannot take a Meteor Mash at all. So I'm going to shield this. I'm figuring they built up a lot. This is probably going to be something big. It's a Dragon Claw, but it doesn't really matter because this Rhyperior threw a superpower when it left the opening matchup, so it has no energy. So these 2 Meteor Matches are going to get their shield and then take this thing out. But again, you'll see how often this team gets Togekiss switch-ins is pretty amazing, and it's kind of why this team works. All right, that was the last one. Hopefully you found this interesting. Maybe you learned something. I mostly just wanted to document a team that worked for me and a strategy, so hopefully other people can find some use out of it.